Welcome to our channel. Today, we pause to remember a life that touched hearts and left a lasting impact. We'll explore their journey, the challenges they faced, and the moments that made them unforgettable. Join us as we honor their story, celebrate their legacy, and reflect on the memories that will continue to inspire and live on in the hearts of those who knew them. The news was confirmed quietly, without spectacle. On January 12, 2026, John Forté passed away, and with his passing, a chapter of American hip-hop history grew still. In the late 1990s, when hip-hop was expanding beyond boundaries and finding new voices, John Forté stood just behind the spotlight. He was not always the face on the album cover, but his presence was deeply felt. Within the Refugee Camp All-Stars, Forté became a trusted creative force, helping shape a sound that blended rhythm, poetry, and social awareness. Born on January 30, 1975, Forté entered music at a time when collaboration mattered as much as individual fame. His work alongside Wyclef Jean placed him at the heart of a movement that believed hip-hop could carry meaning, not just momentum. Songs like "We Trying to Stay Alive" carried urgency and reflection, capturing the struggles and hopes of a generation searching for direction. His contributions extended beyond the microphone. Behind studio doors, Forté played a vital role in the creation of the score in 1996, an album that would later be recognized as one of the most influential hip-hop records of its era. Though his name was not always mentioned first, the album carried his fingerprints, careful production choices, thoughtful structure, and emotional depth. A former refugee camp collaborator once reflected, "John listened more than he spoke, but when he spoke, everyone leaned in." It was this quiet confidence that defined his career. Forté believed in the power of music as conversation, not competition. In 1998, he released his debut studio album, Poli-Sci. The project revealed a more personal side of Forté, blending introspection with sharp lyricism. It did not chase trends. Instead, it offered honesty. Listeners heard an artist unafraid to explore complexity, even when the path was uncertain. But his journey was not without struggle. Like many artists of his era, Forté faced personal challenges that interrupted his momentum. These moments pulled him away from the public eye, yet they did not erase his influence. Those who worked with him continued to speak of his mind, his discipline, and his respect for the craft. As the years passed, Forté's name became synonymous with integrity rather than constant visibility. He remained a reference point for artists who valued substance over noise. His role in shaping hip-hop's thoughtful side quietly endured, even as the genre evolved. Following news of his passing, tributes emerged across social media and within music circles. Wyclef Jean shared a brief message, writing, "John was a soul who understood music beyond sound. His spirit lives in the work we made together." Fans echoed similar sentiments, recalling lyrics that stayed with them long after the beat faded. Another producer who worked alongside him noted, "John never chased attention. He chased truth." That truth, expressed through rhythm and restraint, became the foundation of his legacy. Forté's influence was never about domination. It was about contribution. He helped build something larger than himself, a collective sound that reflected resilience, struggle, and hope. In doing so, he proved that impact does not always come from the loudest voice in the room. Today, his work continues to play in the background of history. Each time the score is revisited, each time an old verse finds new meaning, John Forté's presence returns. Not as a headline, but as a reminder of what hip-hop once promised and can still be. As the music world pauses to remember him, one truth remains clear. John Forté helped shape a moment when hip-hop listened to itself. And though he is gone, the sound he helped build still speaks, steady, thoughtful, and alive in memory. The news reached the jazz world in a quiet way. On January 7, 2026, Rebecca Kilgore passed away, and with her passing, a gentle and faithful voice fell silent. She was born on September 24, 1949, in Portland, Oregon, a city whose small clubs and close-knit music scene would shape her early years. From the beginning, Kilgore was drawn to melody and phrasing rather than volume. She listened carefully, learned patiently, and allowed her voice to grow naturally, shaped by the traditions she loved. As a young performer, she sang in local venues where the audience sat close and every note mattered. There was no distance between singer and listener. Those early nights taught her restraint, timing, and honesty, qualities that would define her entire career. Rebecca Kilgore became known for her deep connection to the great American songbook. She did not treat these songs as relics of the past. Instead, she approached them as living stories, carrying emotion, memory, and warmth. Each lyric was delivered with care, never rushed, never forced. Her collaborations with respected jazz musicians such as Dave Frischberg, Dan Barrett, and Harry Allen reflected mutual respect. She was a singer who elevated the room rather than dominated it. A longtime bandmate once said, "Rebecca didn't try to impress you. She tried to tell the truth of the song." Over time, her reputation grew quietly but steadily. Jazz lovers across generations recognized her gift for clarity and feeling. She understood how to let silence work alongside sound, how to allow a pause to speak just as loudly as a note. In 2010, Kilgore was inducted into the Oregon Music Hall of Fame. The honor reflected not only technical skill, but a lifetime of devotion. Even then, she remained modest. Friends recall her brushing off praise and returning quickly to conversation about music, lyrics, and upcoming performances. Despite recognition, she never chased spectacle. Her career was built on sincerity. She chose smaller rooms, intimate recordings, and thoughtful arrangements. In doing so, she preserved a style of jazz that values connection over attention. When news of her passing became public, tributes began to appear from musicians and listeners alike. Saxophonist Harry Allen shared a simple message: "Rebecca didn't just sing a song. She gave it breath." Fans echoed similar feelings, describing moments when her voice felt like a quiet conversation rather than a performance. Another fellow musician wrote online, "She taught us that swing doesn't have to shout. It can whisper and still move the heart." These reflections captured what made Kilgore unique. Her power was subtle, but deeply felt. In her later years, she continued to perform and record, remaining loyal to the music that shaped her life. She also became a quiet guide to younger artists, showing by example how respect for tradition can coexist with personal expression. Rebecca Kilgore's passing left a noticeable stillness in the jazz community. Clubs felt quieter. Familiar songs carried new weight. Yet her work remains, preserved in recordings that continue to teach listeners how to truly hear a song. Her legacy lives in phrasing, in patience, and in the belief that music does not need to be loud to be lasting. She showed that elegance can endure, and that sincerity never fades. As Portland and the wider jazz world remember her, her voice remains present, soft, steady, and full of care. The melodies she loved continue to travel from one listener to the next, carrying her spirit forward. And in every gentle note, Rebecca Kilgore is remembered, not as a voice that ended, but as one that continues to guide and inspire. The news arrived without fanfare. On January 7, 2026, Jimmy Ray McBride passed away, and the music world quietly felt the absence of a voice it had long relied on. McBride was never the loudest presence in the room. His power lived on the page, in lines written with care and patience. From an early age, he understood how simple words could carry deep meaning, and how a song could hold a life inside it. He began his journey far from bright lights, working with pen and paper as his closest companions. While others chased the stage, McBride focused on the story. His lyrics spoke of love found and lost, of long roads home, and of moments that felt small but mattered deeply. Over time, his songs found their way into the hands of legendary artists. More than 80 performers recorded his work, and 5 of his songs reached number 1. Yet his name often remained in the background, quietly printed in liner notes rather than spoken aloud. A fellow songwriter once reflected, "Jimmy wrote like he was talking to one person at a time." That intimacy became his signature. Listeners heard themselves in his words, even if they never knew who wrote them. McBride's songs did not rely on clever tricks or heavy production. They relied on truth. He believed that the strongest lyrics came from honesty, and he treated everyday experiences as worthy of music. Heartbreak, hope, faith, and endurance were all welcome in his work. As country music evolved, his writing remained steady. He adapted without losing his voice, allowing new sounds to carry familiar feelings. Younger writers often look to his catalog as a lesson in restraint and clarity. In 2017, his induction into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame brought long overdue recognition. The moment was simple and sincere, much like McBride himself. Standing among peers, he accepted the honor with humility, thanking the artists who trusted his words and the listeners who carried them forward. One longtime collaborator shared, "Jimmy never wrote to impress the room. He wrote to tell the truth." That truth made its way into kitchens, cars, and late-night drives across the country, becoming part of daily life for millions. When news of his passing spread, tributes followed quietly. Artists posted short messages, fans shared lyrics that had once helped them through difficult moments. One listener wrote online, "His songs said what I couldn't. They were there when I needed them most." McBride's death marked the end of a life spent listening closely to the human experience. But it also revealed how deeply his work was woven into American music. His songs had become companions, offering comfort without asking for attention. In his later years, he remained devoted to writing, continuing to shape songs with the same care he always had. Fame never changed his approach. The work mattered more than the spotlight. Today, his absence is felt not through silence, but through sound. His lyrics still play on the radio, still echo on stages, still find their way into moments of joy and loss. Each performance carries a piece of his voice forward. Jimmy Ray McBride may have lived behind the scenes, but his impact was wide and lasting. He gave words to feelings many could not name. He reminded listeners that ordinary lives are filled with meaning. As the music continues, so does his legacy. In every familiar line, in every chorus that feels like home, Jimmy Ray McBride is remembered. Not as a songwriter who faded away, but as one whose words remain, steady and true, guiding generations through the music he left behind. The news was confirmed in the early hours. On January 13, 2026, George Vasiliou passed away, and a quiet pause settled over a nation shaped by his years of service. Vasiliou's life followed a path guided by responsibility rather than ambition. Before politics, he built a respected career in business, learning the value of structure, fairness, and long-term thinking. Those lessons later carried into public life, where decisions were measured not by applause, but by consequence. When he entered politics, Cyprus stood at a difficult crossroads. Division, mistrust, and uncertainty weighed heavily on public life. As president, Vasiliou approached leadership with patience, believing that progress required listening as much as action. He worked to modernize institutions and reduce political surveillance, placing transparency at the center of governance. These reforms were not always popular, but they were steady. His belief was simple: a state should serve its people, not control them. A former cabinet colleague once reflected, George never rushed a decision. He wanted it done right, even if it cost him politically. That restraint became one of his defining traits. Leadership, for Vasiliou, was a duty, not a performance. His presidency also focused on reconciliation. In a nation marked by division, he spoke often about coexistence and dialogue. Progress was slow and imperfect, but his efforts planted seeds that continued to shape conversations long after his term ended. After leaving office, Vasiliou did not step away from public life. Instead, he returned to civic engagement, offering guidance, mentorship, and quiet counsel. He believed experience carried an obligation to serve beyond formal titles. Those who worked with him during these later years remember his accessibility. One young civil servant shared, he treated questions seriously, no matter who asked them. That kind of respect stays with you. His influence extended through people, not positions. News of his passing prompted reflection across Cyprus and beyond. Messages from diplomats, former colleagues, and citizens carried a shared tone of respect. Many spoke not of single achievements, but of character. An international diplomat wrote in tribute, George led with responsibility. His strength was calm, and his impact was lasting. Others echoed similar sentiments, noting his moral courage during moments when compromise felt easier than principle. Vasiliou's life was not defined by dramatic gestures. It was defined by consistency. He believed leadership meant building systems that outlast individuals, and values that endure beyond one term or one generation. In a time when politics often leaned toward division, his example stood apart. He showed that patience could be powerful, and that dignity could guide decision-making. Even those who disagreed with him acknowledged his integrity. As Cyprus reflects on his passing, his reforms remain woven into public institutions. His voice continues in conversations about accountability and unity. These are not monuments of stone, but of structure and principle. George Vasiliou's legacy is one of service without spectacle. He demonstrated that leadership rooted in ethics can quietly shape a nation's future. His life reminds citizens that progress is often built slowly, through trust and perseverance. As the chapter of his life closes, his influence remains present, in laws shaped with care, in dialogue carried forward, and in the belief that leadership is an act of responsibility. George Vasiliou is remembered not for seeking power, but for honoring it. And in that quiet distinction, his legacy continues.